for tuning in. We got some more people registered, but it's the top of the hour, so we like to get started on time. So thanks for being here on time. And we'll let them just kind of come in when they get here. So Janine Ottley is here from Edge Homes. We're excited for this because we were talking earlier about how new construction is kind of misunderstood, I think, by a lot of agents and how that all works. I think some of them even avoid it because they don't really understand the whole process and where they fit in. How many of you have ever had clients say they bought a home without an agent because it was new construction? They didn't have an agent on their side. I have. It's like, oh, well, I didn't need an agent. I went to new construction. Hopefully Janine's going to touch on that. Yeah, good. So Janine, we first met Janine because she was an alternate on a discussion panel we did with successful moms in real estate. And somebody did show up and she's like, I'm ready. So that was a great introduction. So we got to know her. And then you actually sponsored another panel discussion we did with investors. That one was really good. So if you guys want copies to that, I can get you that. So Janine, come on up.
Okay.
We're ready to get rock and roll. Let me turn on my clicker. If I can.
It's right here.
Oh, you have it. It's on.
I think
Good. Give it a test here.
things.
Awesome. I'll get it back up so they can see that
Okay.
beautiful picture. Okay, awesome. Tell them a little bit more about yourself, whatever you want to do, and then we'll get into it.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. Hi, everybody on Zoom, and hello, everyone in person. I know a lot of you, some of you I don't know. So I'm just going to tell you a tiny bit about myself personally and my experience in real estate. I am a mom of 4. That's super important to me. I've been married for almost 7 years. My first grandbaby is due on Sunday, which is super exciting. My baby's about to graduate high school, so I am about to be an empty nester, which is crazy. And I got into new construction real estate in 2015. I worked for a builder and I did all of I actually headed up their design department first. And then I went on to create like not a warranty, like an orientation closing process for the builder so that a quality control, like we would have quality control walks and things like that. Then I revamped their warranty department and then they asked me to be an agent. So I became an agent in 2016 and worked for that builder for quite a few years. And then I moved to Edge 2 years ago. It'll be 2 years in August. And so I'm just excited to be here and I'm going to talk about new construction and hopefully we can have an open discussion. I don't want to sit here and have an hour-long monologue. I don't want to hear myself talk for that long. I definitely want questions and comments or experiences, even things that we can talk about solutions, even problems that we can talk about solutions for. So if on Zoom you have some, Jeff, am I moderating those or? Oh, great.
Yeah,
Thank you. Okay.
I mean,
So it's Zoom. If you guys have any questions or comments while I'm talking, please feel free to put them out there. And then anyone here, if you guys have questions or comments or things to add, I think that makes the experience all the better. So I don't use PowerPoint very often. Let's see how this goes.
I just clicked on it, so it froze
Okay.
it. I have to do. I learned little tricks.
Okay. Yay. Okay. So we're just going to go through just a really brief overview of what new construction entails. Obviously, it's different than resale where we have an existing home, you have your inspections, you have your appraisal, radon testing, things like that. It's a little bit different. New construction is a little bit different. We're not starting normally with a built product. We are starting with identifying where they want to live, their location, their floor plan preference, their lot. Then we kind of go into the contract, which is a builder's contract, different than the normal Utah Rep C. And most builders have their own Rep C. Not every builder will. Some will just use the normal new construction Rep C that is provided, but a lot of builders have their own Rep C. And that's good to know because oftentimes they're slanted towards the builder or for the builder's benefit. And one thing I love about Edge is that our contract is super equitable. It's buyer and seller default. There's no crazy, we can increase your price or we can cancel for any reason or anything like that. It's a very equitable contract, which I appreciate. And so anyway, we have our own contract and most builders do. Once you get past the contract phase, obviously we have pre-qual and some of my clients will pre-qual before, especially if they're represented by somebody, they've already come prepared. And After pre-qual is done and we're kind of rolling, we're into design. Unless you're buying a spec, so this is if you're going from, start to finish. You're going into design and designing your home. Edge has the option to customize, and many builders do. And we're going to talk about kind of the different kinds of build production, a hybrid model, which is more Edge's model, and a custom option, so that you guys can kind of get a brief rundown of what each one is. Anyway, after you're in design, your home goes through, or the client's home goes through a series of different checks and balances. Like it goes to the architects, it goes to engineering, it goes to manual J's, it goes to trusses, it goes to the city, and then finally we have permit. We dig and go through that whole vertical construction process until we're finished. So oftentimes that process can be 8 months, maybe 10. I was quoting buyers 10 to 12 months. Right now, I would say that Edge is closer to 8, but every builder is going to be different. So I think that setting expectations early and often is really important to have a successful transaction. I feel like it's my job as the builder's agent, as a seller's representative, to make sure that I'm setting the proper expectation with my buyers and my buyer's agent. I will always tell a buyer if they ask if they need an agent, which usually means that they have one and they just don't know whether to use them or not. I will always tell my buyer that having someone to represent their interests, where I'm really representing Edge's interests, the seller's interests, is to their benefit. Having someone on their side who's watching out for them is to their benefit. We are extremely realtor friendly. I know not every builder is, but we are. And it's always nice to work with a builder that is realtor friendly. And we believe that the buyer's agent enhances that transaction. So I think that another pitfall that happens commonly is that my agents sometimes who are new to the new construction process, as well as my buyers, will worry about things that haven't happened yet. It's understandable. It's the unknown. I try to head that off if I can. I have several emails that I send out at different points in the process that go over everything that I think I've told them in person, everything that you might have told them in person, things that are important for them to know. I put it all in writing, and I tell them that they need to flag that email and refer back to it often, because no one's ever going to remember everything that I have to say or that you have to say. So I think that putting things in writing and reiterating those expectations and kind of those boundaries or guidelines often is super helpful. So I have something that is kind of illustrates that point. I think about worrying about things that haven't happened yet. I've had several instances where, so Edge, when they go into a development and they're ready to start digging these different properties, they'll oftentimes take out 3 or 4 feet of dirt. And so when you go and look at a street, it'll look like it has like a mini foundation dug maybe, and then the lot lines are all staked. And so I've had several clients reach out and worry that we have dug their home already, that their basement has been dug when we're not even through design. And so that is a great thing that I'm able to head off at the beginning and just say, hey, listen, just so you know, when you go out to your lot, it may not look flat anymore. It might have a little bit of a divot. This is just us making sure that we can remove extra dirt so that we do dig your foundation, especially if it's in the middle of winter. We don't have quite as much dirt to remove. So especially if it's like a hill to begin with or whatever. Which actually leads me into just something I want to make sure that I address. I'm sure all of you read the news. I'm sure all of you know about Edge and what happened in Draper about the 2 homes sliding off the cliff. And I want to make sure that I just address that, and it's not something that I am trying to avoid. To be honest, I completely forgot at the beginning of my presentation, but I want to just address that really quickly. I don't speak for Edge, even though I represent them as an independent contractor. I don't speak for them. My experience and my observation has been that they have handled this with class. They have gone above and beyond, and they have done their best to outreach to the community. They're actually walking every single lot, even if it's on the other side of the entire development, which I don't know if any of you are familiar with Hidden Canyon, but the other side is just flat native soil. And they're walking every lot and looking at people's retaining walls just to make sure that they feel okay with even their own retaining walls that they've put in. As far as how they dealt with those two homes, there has been a lot of gossip, rumor, half-truths, speculation, even untruths about how they handled those homes. But I think what I will say is that they have gone above and beyond in every sense to make sure that the buyers feel taken care of, that they feel okay about what's happened, to the point where I know that when they had that meeting, they actually addressed the entire community in person the day after it happened. Well, 36 hours after it happened. And those buyers, those particular buyers, were coming up and giving the owners hugs. And I think that even though emotions were high and tensions were high, it sounded like at the end it was more a lot of sadness, which is, you know, devastating, right? That's unimaginable, and I can imagine that everybody was so sad. So anyway, I want to address that. I don't know that we can avoid, especially with a handmade product and God's earth, that we can avoid disasters, but what we do have control of is how we handle those. And so it's been reassuring, it's been affirming and encouraging to see how Edge has handled that situation. So anyway, speaking of pitfalls, that was one we obviously couldn't have avoided, but I just appreciate how they handled it, and it makes me proud to work for them. So anyway, so let's move on. So identifying the challenges and decisions involved in building, having a buyer's agent who knows new construction is paramount to my success and to the buyer's success. I had a client who put in, who did a beautiful home, spent maybe like over $100,000 in options, and was so upset when she realized that she had put in a normal slider door. Like, they had spent all this money to make it wider, but they didn't make it taller. So they had 9-foot ceilings, if you can imagine, and they had a 6'8" slider, which is a 6 foot 8 inch slider. And so they had all this white space above it. And so even though I have a little cheat sheet that I send to my buyers, I can't expect them all to read everything. And so having a designer and an agent on the buyer's side is really important, because you can kind of help them and say, hey, have you thought about this? And I actually have a cheat sheet that I'll send you guys the link to at the end, or I have a QR code for, that you can kind of go through and think about these different things, or help your buyers think about these different things, because even designers can't read minds. So anyway, I think that it's a huge challenge. It's a huge undertaking to do a new build. And unfortunately, none of us are mind readers. We don't know what the buyer wants unless they share those things. And so it's super important to make sure that you as the agent can kind of guide them through and help be their wise guide, that I'm there to help be their wise guide, or a builder's agent is there to be their wise guide as well. And that there's communication and lots of questions. So the more detail that a buyer has upfront, the better. I will tell a buyer to make Pinterest boards, take pictures of things that they like, make a list of questions, even go and Google articles and blog posts and things like that, so that they can think of things that they didn't think of. Like, how are they going to use their space? Is this their forever home, or is this their 5-year plan? Are they house hacking just to, be able to move on to the next thing, or they want to stay here forever? I think that a team such as an outside realtor, a good builder's agent, a good designer, and this is regardless of product, a good landscape architect and a good architect are paramount in order to make that a successful transaction. Any questions so far?
I just want to add one thing. I think if you haven't done new construction before, or you haven't, been an investor in remodel, and kind of have some tips and tricks or whatever, having a conversation with the builder's agent, somebody like Janine, of like, what have others done on this floor plan? Like the raising the sliding glass door, or putting electrical outlets in the closets for their vacuums to charge.
Yep.
Little things like that. If you're not familiar, go out of your way and represent your client by having a conversation with Janine and say, what are some things that other people have done that they're like, oh, so thankful they had done, or what did they miss and they're upset they missed, like this slider. Because then you can kind of like be that liaison for your client.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's actually why I came up with my little cheat sheet. I think that what I ended up writing was an article that has like 10 of the most common things that people kind of overlook or forget or don't consider. But I also have a cheat sheet of 50 different things, and they're more specific to edge, you know, about where insulation normally goes. And because people don't think about that, people don't think about if they're going to finish their basement, that there's not commonly insulation between the main floor and the basement with our company. Whereas if you build with a custom builder, there might be. Or insulation between bedrooms, you know, do you want to hear your teenagers loud music at 2 a.m. or whatever? It's important to think about those things, and often people don't, because it's just not even something that they've considered yet. They haven't gone through that process yet. They don't know any different. So I do send that cheat sheet out, and then again, I have that article that I'll post at the end. So buyers will often know what they don't want. It's really easy to say, you know, I don't want a small lot. Well, and so the best way to help your buyer, and the best way that I can help your buyer, is by asking questions. What is a small lot? What does that mean? Can you tell me more about that? Oftentimes, always actually, those expectations and those ideas of what a small lot is, what a large lot is, what having a big yard for your kids means, that's subjective. It's going to change with every single person. I want a big house. What does that mean to you? I need to understand, like, how many bedrooms are you talking about? What's big? What have you seen that's big? What's too small? So by asking a lot of questions, you can help to kind of pull out what and they may not even know what they're thinking. They just know that they want something to feel spacious and open, but they don't know what that means. So let's go through the different types of builders, because I think that the different kind of builder that you choose, they each present their own challenges and benefits. So a production builder is, I'm not going to name names. But production builders are builders where you don't choose the options. They're already chosen for you. And sometimes actually, I know of production builders that will allow you to choose from like 11 different color palettes for the exterior and interior. Or they might have some pre-priced options that you can add, like a gourmet kitchen where it's all packaged together. That's awesome. Your buyers don't have to make any further decisions other than adding the gourmet kitchen. But if they'd like to move a door, or if they'd like to increase the size of their family room or their kitchen, or add more cabinetry, it's not a thing. And so this is a great product for someone who doesn't want to make a lot of decisions. It also was my first home. A production builder built my first home, which was a lot less overwhelming than doing custom, which was my second project. Okay. So production builders, they do take a lot of the guesswork out of things, and your buyer's choices are a little more limited. This might be great for someone who just doesn't have the time or the energy to make those decisions. And these can come in different quality levels as well. Production builders can come in different quality levels. It might also be great for a first-time home buyer who's overwhelmed by this whole process, because a lot of the guesswork, like I said, is taken out of it. Then you have what we call a hybrid builder. I think there are quite a few of these in Utah, Edge being one of them. I consider us a hybrid builder because we have certain communities that are a little more production based. They still have 30 pages of options that my clients can choose from, but you can't do anything customizable. You can't customize certain things in certain communities. Then I have other communities like Harriman or Lehigh or Saratoga Springs, where I will have buyers come in and customize the entire structure and add $300,000 or $400,000 in options. And we have a parade home up in Saratoga Springs, and the home, I think right next to it or 2 doors down, did like $300,000 or $400,000 in custom options and built a beautiful 6,000 square foot Rambler that's almost done. But they did all kinds of cool stuff. And they sat down with the architect, and that's kind of the benefit of a hybrid builder, is that oftentimes they'll have architects at your disposal so that you can take one of their plans, sit down and customize it to varying degrees. And every hybrid builder is going to have their own set of rules and allowances to do those. So it may cost a certain amount, a set amount, it might cost a percentage of the build. They might have restrictions like you can't change the stairs, or you can't change where the plumbing is, or whatever it is. You can't change the footprint more than 10%, whatever it is. They'll each have their own restrictions. So those are really good questions to ask. If they say that they allow customization, what does that mean? How much does it cost? and what can we and can't we change. A custom builder also has different kinds of models. Most of them are cost plus. What that means is that whatever the home costs them, and they all calculate it differently, they all keep their books very differently, it's very individualized. But cost plus generally means that you have a cost to build the home plus their profit. That's the plus. So it's usually a percentage of the total home cost. So for example, my second home was a custom build. And in that case, where you have a custom builder, sometimes they will take out the construction loan. Sometimes they will require your client to take out the construction loan and they will be named on it so they can do their own draws. Sometimes they only want you on the construction loan and your client is doing the draws. And these are really good things to know if you're going to enter into that world, because your client may not be prepared or want to take out a construction loan to be able to build their home. And so asking those questions of those custom builders is a good preemptive step to make sure that you and your client are aligned with that builder. So for example, the home that the home that we built that was custom, we did all the draws. He was not on the construction loan. We saw all of the actual bills. And then we had budgets for every line item. So if we went under that budget item, that was our actual cost. If we went over the budget item, we were charged more. But some builders will just have budgets in and you won't see their actual bills for costs. And it does become really cumbersome to have to like account for all of that and look at all that. But it can also be an amazing experience because your client can get hopefully exactly what they want. So those are the three types of builders that we have broken down really simply, so that you can kind of understand and identify those different products for your client and what might work best. Custom homes right now are usually priced per square foot. That's how that's how a builder will usually quote you. There are some who won't talk to you for less than $350 a square foot. I think that's starting to maybe soften a little bit. Some won't talk to you for less than $1,000 a square foot. Including landscaping, and that's the other thing, is that what that square footage includes is all very different, right? They may include a landscape architect with that, a full set of plans with that, but regardless, price per square foot and what it includes is really important for a custom build. Whereas Edge has a hybrid builder is probably going to have a set price, and then it's going to have set price options and then customized options that can be priced out. And you also want to find out from your builder, if you're doing a hybrid model, when are they getting that pricing back to you? I've had experiences personally as a seller's agent where those prices haven't come back for months. I've had experiences where those prices have been back the next week. That makes a huge difference in your client's experience. Make sure I'm not missing anything else. Okay, all right. So supporting clients and making informed decisions. This is one of the areas I feel like my buyer's agents are paramount in my success and in the success of the transaction. My buyer's agents are there. Obviously, you're there to represent the buyer and to have their best interests in mind, which doesn't intimidate me. I love it. I love work. In fact, I think 100% of my deals are reps this year. Last year it was like 92%. So, and the 8% that were like, referrals who just didn't have anyone they wanted to work with. But most of my deals are represented and I prefer it that way. I always want someone there who's representing the buyer's interests, who can help, again, be that wise guide and navigate through this process together. So I expect you guys as buyer's agents to ask a ton of questions. Anything you don't understand, anything you want clarification on, anything that I may have miscommunicated, anything that seems ambiguous or unclear from Edge's perspective, if you're using me, but this is true of any builder. Reading all the paperwork and the documents is cumbersome, but it's also, one of the great fiduciary responsibilities that you guys have. So reading all of the documents, such as the HOA docs, the CC&Rs that come out for every community. We send our sellers disclosures, and everybody's a little different, but we send our sellers disclosures at time of contract. So as soon as contract is accepted, all of our sellers disclosures are sent. For us, that also includes soils reports. Like I said, HOA plat, recorded plat. So any easements, any weird easements. I had an agent contact me the other day, an Edge agent, And he was asking questions about a plat. And what you could tell by the plat was that there was a PUE easement on the front, which is normal. And then there was also a PUE easement on the back because it backs up to a trail. And he wasn't aware of that. And so the owners in this case were upset. They hadn't closed yet, but they were upset because on the PUE, they were building a fence. But they had every right to do it because this backs up against a public utility. And so the buyers were upset that it was encroaching on their property line. Anyway, so it's one of those things that, you know, it's important for you as agents to understand. It's important for us to communicate to make sure that we are on the same page and your buyers know what they're getting. So reading through all of those is super important. And again, the contract is unique to each builder, or you can always ask, do you have your own REPC? In my case, it's different. I fill out the contract. It's an internal software that I use. And so I fill out the contract for you guys and send it to you, and which I know is weird for a lot of people. And so, but obviously, and you know this, I'm obligated, if your buyer wants to write something under ask, I'm obligated to write that. Don't let a seller's agent tell you any different. I've heard of agents saying, no, they won't write that. We can't, you know that. And so we're happy to write those contracts in our case and send those over. Also, I'm always happy to send a blank contract so that you can have an idea of what the contract says before you're reading it in DocuSign. Any questions so far? All right. Yeah. Were you gonna say something? Oh, okay. You looked perplexed. Okay.
If you're on Zoom, you can unmute yourself anytime or just put something in the chat.
So communicating effectively, I feel like my buyer's agents are my partners in communicating effectively. I want to have, first and foremost, a good working relationship with my buyer's agent. That's super important to me. And therefore, and by proxy, have a good relationship with the client. Oftentimes I will put everybody in a group text in order to avoid miscommunication, in order to avoid someone taking what I've said the wrong way or misunderstanding me, even though I understand tone and, you know, inflection can't be passed along through text. At least I know exactly what is written, and then we can go from there. However, like it says here, don't have emotional or crucial conversations like Louis talks about when emotions and stakes are high. Well, when we're building, emotions and the stakes are always high. So I think that having those communications when tempers aren't flared is always a good thing. Taking a minute to calm down or to collect yourself and collect your thoughts, or, you know, this is true of everybody, right? To have those conversations is super important. I do like to keep it in writing. Like I said, I actually have gotten to the point with a couple of clients where if they call, I will respond with a text and just say, hey, we just need to keep this in writing. If things get a little volatile, sometimes that's the best way to keep communication effective, and by keeping it in writing. And maybe if you're going to have a phone conversation, you know, it's about emotions, but not about the actual contract. I always think that it's good to say, okay, so what I'm understanding is, or what I heard you say was, just to make sure that you're on the same page. I mean, these are good communication skills, regardless of who you're working with. I just find that there's so much information during a new build that this becomes very important to make sure that I understand my buyer's agent, to make sure that I understand the client. It's really important to reiterate and make sure that I understood exactly what they were saying. And oftentimes we don't. Oftentimes what we're hearing is different than what's being said. So we kind of talked about this a little bit, just as a brief overview, again, for financing options for new construction. Again, different builders are going to do it differently. Most hybrid builders have their own source of construction loans. And so most hybrid builders will not have you take out or have your client take out a construction loan. I don't know of any production builders that will have you take out your own construction loan. However, a lot of custom builders will. So, and some won't. So knowing what your buyer's options are, if they're going to build custom, is important so that they know if they have to secure their own construction loan. If that comes as a surprise, it's always a devastating surprise. It's never a good one. So helping them find the right fit. So this is, I consider this my job because I know the product. So if I have a buyer's agent coming to me and you're asking me, you know, if I have anything in Harriman and your buyer wants a big yard and a big home, I consider it my obligation and responsibility to find out what that means and to help them narrow down their decisions and find the right fit for them. So again, asking a lot of questions or asking questions or answering questions with the question is always really helpful. So for example, if Jeff comes to me and says, I have a client who wants a big lot in Harriman and a big home, they want a big backyard. So my question back to Jeff or ideally the client and Jeff in person would be, tell me a little bit more about what you mean when you say a big yard. And that might sound like something like we want to fit a trampoline back there. We want enough room for a 6-seater table and a little gas fire pit. We want a soccer field in our backyard. And so it varies. And so finding out what that means for each client is important. Asking questions like, what does a big home look like to you? How many bedrooms does a big home have? What homes have you seen that you're comparing this to? How many square feet is that? How many bedrooms do you need? Do you plan on staying here for the long term? Do you want your master on the main floor, or do you foresee yourself walking upstairs for the foreseeable future? Do you entertain a lot? How many people do you entertain when you have company or you're having parties? So finding out those things it's really important to understand what your client is actually looking for. And again, that's why I'm here. My job is to hopefully make the buyer's agent's job easier. If I've done my job at the end of the transaction, my buyer's agents love to bring clients to me because I make their job easier. That's the goal. And also asking a lot of questions helps to kind of pin down what the home actually includes or what it doesn't. I had an experience early on when I was building that I assumed, this is the worst in real estate, right? And in building a new construction, I assumed that because I was doing a gourmet double oven and a cooktop and the nicer dishwasher and the farm sink and all of that stuff, that my hood, like a beautiful wood hood, would come with it. Why wouldn't it? Because I did all the other gorgeous things. It didn't in that case. And that was my assumption, which was my mistake. And so just never assume. Asking lots of questions and getting detailed information about actually what is included and what you need to pair together in order to make what your client wants is super important. Getting to the root of their dissatisfaction is also really important when you're thinking about what they want. So a buyer they don't buy benefits. They don't buy features, they buy benefits. So in other words, my buyers aren't buying a double oven. They're buying the 20 people that they can have over for Thanksgiving and be able to cook a turkey and all of their sides and get that all done and have everybody over for Thanksgiving. They're not buying my double oven. They don't care about my double oven. They care about the emotional connection that brings and that allows because the double oven facilitates it. So getting to the root of the dissatisfaction, for example, I'll just use myself as an example rather than using any clients as an example. Right now I live in a 2-story. I love my home. I love where I live. I love the layout of my home. I also have 5 bedrooms, including a basement bedroom, and all my kids, I have one left at home and she's about to leave. So my dissatisfaction is not that I have a home that's too big, but all of a sudden I have children who are married. I'm going to have a grandbaby in a second. I want everybody to come over and be in my main living space, in my kitchen, in my family room, in my dining room. And I don't know that I have enough space for that eventually. I'm not moving anytime soon, but I don't have quite enough space for that. And so because that's my dissatisfaction is emotional. It's not being able to have enough space for everybody to come to grandma's house, to my house, to be together. That's the dissatisfaction. Or another one would be that I commute about 45 minutes to sometimes an hour each way every day. And that's more time I have to spend away from my husband or, doing the things I want to do. And so the commute It's not the 45 minutes or the charging or the gas or whatever it is. It's the time, which is emotional. That time spent is really important to me. So getting to the root of someone's dissatisfaction is really important, because it's not the double oven that they don't have. It's what it means. It's not the yard that they don't have, or, you know, or the little amount of grass that they're ticked off about. It's what it represents, or what they can't do with what they've got. And so getting to the root of that emotional dissatisfaction is really important. And I'm happy to help you do that. I consider that also my responsibility. So managing expectations. So I think that, again, communicating early and often, like we talked about, tell your clients how you plan on communicating with them. I love to tell my clients, I'm going to send you this email. It's going to reiterate everything we just talked about, and maybe even say things that I didn't say, or because we got sidetracked on this for an hour, we didn't talk about. And so I let them know I'm going to send them several emails throughout the process. I also tell them that we're going to set up a group text between the buyer's agent, me, and the buyer, and that we're going to communicate there. And then if phone calls or voice memos or Zoom calls or in-person meetings are needed or are helpful, then we will communicate that way as well. But if you set the expectation of how you're going to communicate, I think that helps a lot. And I will say that I think that new construction seems daunting to a lot of people because they don't know where to start. And there's a myriad of new construction agents out there, just like there are a myriad of, you know, resale or traditional agents out there. And so your experience is going to be as good as your agent is. And some custom builders don't have agents. So you're working directly with, you know, the project manager, you're working directly with the owner or whatever. So that might feel different than working with like a hybrid or a production builder. But again, I think that your experience is only as good as the person with whom you're communicating, who is representing the company. I love when my buyer's agents allow me to talk to their clients, not necessarily without them. I love a buyer's agent being involved in all communication. When my buyer's agent will not let me speak to the client, it hinders our ability to connect, to get through that next 8 months that we have together. And so I can't help them if I can't connect and if we can't figure out exactly what's going on. I usually, almost always, that's a less successful transaction when my buyer's agent feels like it's their responsibility to always play telephone, to always be the communicator and never let us have communication. It happens. I will absolutely respect it because you represent the buyer, but I prefer that we all communicate together rather than, you know, gatekeeping your client. I
normally do that. You get on three-way calls,
Yes.
have them in person, Zoom.
So in person is my favorite. I love to meet a client in person. And then I will usually, if I can see that there's gatekeeping going on where my agent will say something like, okay, well, I will tell the client and then I'll let you know. I will tell if I see it's becoming a pattern of behavior, I'll usually reach out to the agent and just say, hey, listen, I of course you represent this is your buyer. I don't want to take that away from you, but usually I find it's based in fear. It's a fear of losing that client, or it's a fear of, I don't know, it's some kind of mistrust, you know, that they might feel like they've been burned in the past, you know, with another experience. And so there's usually some kind of fear-based something going on when I have buyer's agents who gatekeep. And so I'll if it happens and I can see it's a pattern, I'll usually get on the phone with my buyer's agent and just say, hey, like, I understand you may have had bad experiences, or I understand you want to communicate with your client and that you want to be the one communicating with your client, which is awesome. Can we at least get on a group text and you can be the main communicator, but then if there's something needed, I can even text you separately and say, hey, can I jump in and say something here? And usually what that builds is trust over time, because my agents will understand that I don't want to take their transaction. I don't want to step on their toes. I want to make you guys look like the hero. At the end of the whole thing, I want them to come back to you and think you're awesome. And I want you to come back to me. So ultimately, this is only a successful transaction if we all work together. So I always will, well, always is a strong term.
Mhm.
So I try my best to under promise and over deliver if I can. So I will tell the clients, like I said, right now, like 8 to 10 months when I know that it's most likely 8. And so what I will tell my clients for a build job is, I want you to set your heart on 10 months. And I want you to plan your loan and your moving and your selling of your home on 8. And if you do that, we won't be disappointed. And then when we're done 8 weeks and 8 months and 1 week into it, or we're done 7 months and 3 weeks into it, I find that if we've communicated throughout the whole process, that is not devastating to my clients. They're excited that it's done, you know, at the beginning of that mark rather than at the end, which is why for the longest time I was saying 10 to 12. We were getting it done more like in 9.5 months, maybe 10. But I found if I said 10 to 12 and I kind of gave them that spiel of, you know, set your heart on 12, but plan everything else in your life around 10. My buyers weren't disappointed and they weren't upset at the end. Okay, so at the end of the transaction, right? Once we have vertical construction done, everything's finished, all the walkthroughs have happened, and everybody does this differently. The whole walkthrough process is different for everybody. Blue tape walks, it's a common term in the industry. Edge doesn't even do them. They don't do them because they're afraid that you'll find something. They don't do them because they've already had 5 quality control walks before you've ever walked them. They go through with orientation managers who sit there with buyers all day and understand how buyers think and what they look at and what bothers them and what they feel like is the quality. They want to make sure that they represent the quality of their product. So my buyers don't do a blue tape walk. I have to say, and this is in the last 2 years of my experience with Edge specifically. My previous employment was a different story, but I have to say I've never had a buyer say, "Oh, well, you didn't fix the drywall or paint issues in my home before I got here." That actually has never been a thing in my experience here. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen. But that's the nice thing about the orientation is that with Edge, if something happens, or if there's something that someone can see that's not okay, if our buyers see something, or there's a screw pop, or someone scratched something, whatever it is, they'll address it. Usually they'll address it right there. Almost always you'll have the orientation manager there, and then they have someone who's actually there to do any kind of a touch up or something that's last minute that's small. My lists are usually anywhere between 0 items, which happens quite frequently, to I think the highest I've seen is 4 items, and they're not big. It's like the baluster holder at the bottom, or the baluster cover at the bottom was loose, or this door sticks a little bit, you know, the weather's just changed, something like that. So they're usually minor issues because they've done so many quality walks that it's ready to go. But the buyer walkthrough varies from builder to builder, and what that looks like varies. And so sometimes you'll have 4-way walks that the buyers are invited to, and this is with other builders. We don't do a 4-way walk at Edge. And that's the time to make sure, like in a custom build specifically, or even in certain hybrid builders, that your outlets are where you want them, that the door swings are the right way, that things like that have happened the way that your client has designed them. Inspections. So not all builders welcome outside inspectors. I've had 3 in the last month, outside inspector. Actually, 2 of them have been the same inspector. Edge welcomes a third-party inspector. They're not afraid of anything. They're not worried about it. They're not trying to hide anything. And so if it makes our clients feel better to have a third-party inspector, great. That's awesome. The one thing that you need to understand about, I can't speak for every builder, but I would say a majority of builders, maybe minus custom, is that they will look at that list and they will determine what they're willing to fix and what they're not going to fix. And unlike a traditional build where your contract might be contingent upon inspection, I mean a traditional sale where your existing real estate where it might be contingent upon inspection and kind of resolving those items, this transaction is not. And that's true of most builders. So obviously if there's things that can't pass C of O or you've got glaring issues, that's something that needs to be addressed. The orientation we kind of talked about, it's an hour-long process in Edge that is there to orient the buyer on how to use their home. It's there to make sure that they know how to change their furnace filter, to flush out their tankless water heater, which is kind of a different beast, to be able to turn on their fireplace and turn it off, to know where their water mains are, things like that. Also to orient them on how to take care of their quartz or their granite or, you know, their different, their cabinets. It doesn't, any surface, they're there to orient them on how to take care of them, which I love. Because I think that all of us will walk into a new product and I don't know what the floor is, I don't know what the cabinets can handle, and being able to have someone teach me how to use those different products or how to take care of those different products is super helpful. Closing, we have a preferred lender, as do many builders. Our benefit for closing with our preferred lender is that you get keys at closing. And there's also a 3% seller credit that we're offering as well. But being able to close, we will do, even if you have your favorite title company, we will close, we'll do a split closing. We don't love them, but we will do them. So we will always close with our title company, and the client can close, you know, with an outside title company if that's what they choose. And then again, that 3% seller credit is super important. And I would make sure that you ask, most lenders or most builders have a preferred lender, and there's some kind of incentive for using the lender. I know that the days of the, you know, higher credits and the higher, you know, incentives have kind of gone away a little bit. Edge is still hanging in there, which is nice for any of my clients, but those incentives are there. If this is my son. Hi. No. There's also a realtor who brings me business, which is awesome. So anyway, there can be benefits, varying benefits to using the preferred lender. I also know that you all have lenders who you love, who you trust, who you work with. And so that's okay too. Edge has kind of made a plan for that, and they have contingencies for that so that our buyers can use an outside lender and still get that 3%. And we can talk more about that. It's a little more cumbersome, but I have no idea what time it is. I can't even see that screen. Okay, but I wanted to open up, I went the last 15 minutes, but I'm happy to take the last 10. Here's the QR code for my website. On this website, if you click on blog articles, that will give you that little 10 item, you know, list of things that maybe buyers need to consider and think about. Please use that. You can also sign up there to get my emails. I'm not like a mass email kind of girl. I send out an email to, I think, 60 agents, maybe twice a month, maybe, because they've specifically asked to be on the email list. That's it. And then occasionally there will be texts, and some of my agents want texts about like, this just dropped, let's go. And so I'm happy to text my agents as well, but I don't do a mass email. I don't put you in any database. I hate to lose the personal touch. And I feel like that's part of what makes me good at my job. So anyway, but any questions, I am happy to answer. Yes.
So you're mentioning a lot about single family homes. What about multi-family or multi-units?
You mean having it, or how do they differ?
Well, how does that differ?
Yeah, that's a great question.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question.
You have
So,
other incentives, I mean.
yep, so builder incentives stay the same.
Okay.
This is what, you know, all I can speak for is Edge, but builder incentives stay the same. So that 3% is across my product lines.
Okay, what about?
Customization and all of that.
Well, is everything the same for multi-unit, I guess what I'm saying?
So
as far as customization,
right,
as far as commission.
right.
Are you talking about condos and townhomes?
In condos. So commission remains the same. So Edge pays a full 3% BAC on the net purchase price. So if we use that 3% to lower the purchase price for your client, obviously that would come a tiny bit off your commission, but it's base price and options that we pay on, and we've always maintained 3%. So that's super important. Also the 3% seller credit is also there for across product lines. As far as customization, that's a great question. Condo, I would say that it changes depending on the product type. So my condos, I have 4 choices people can make, and most of those we're actually speccing right now with 3 out of 4 of the choices. So we're speccing most of them with quartz, with LVP, and with blinds. The only other choice that our clients can make is a water softener. So, and most of my clients don't choose that, but if they wanted to, we would just choose a build. So that's it for condos. For towns, there are a lot more choices. I have, like I said, I think it's 25 pages of options that our clients can choose from, so they can highly customize the finishes of their townhome, the structure is a different story. The structure cannot be customized just because of how difficult that would be and how much that would slow down production. And they are kind of the well-oiled machine and keeping things going. We spec some of those out so that our buyers have choices that they can snag and that will be done in a month or two or are done already. And then we also provide builds so that my clients can build from, you know, the ground up and make all of their choices, choose their cabinet color and all of that.
So there was the new thing where the
Yep.
state's giving the,
$20,000.
yeah, so 450,000.
Yes. So I have condos that are obviously that are well under that. I have condos in the 320 range, for actually 314 in Saratoga. And then I absolutely have townhomes that are 450 and under.
Okay.
Yeah. So, which is gonna be a great program. I don't know if you guys know a lot about that, but we attended a seminar yesterday and it's gonna be.
Starts on July 1st.
Yeah,
right?
July 1st, and I know that they said it was gonna take them a couple days to kind of get their feet underneath them to figure it all out. Utah Housing came and spoke to us. But if you go to their website, you can kind of look at their.
It's under
programs.
Utah Housing.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. Then you can go in and look at all the different programs. You can look at what kind of interest rate they'd have depending on their purchase price. It's pretty cool. But
Well,
yeah.
it's 0%.
Oh, on the money, I'm talking
Yeah.
about like interest
Oh.
for like the loan they're talking about, because you do one of their loans to do that.
Right.
There is one conventional product, but the rest of them are Utah Housing products. for
Okay.
the loan, yeah. Did I answer your question? Okay, what other questions? Yeah,
I'm wondering what advice you have for when you're working with an agent that is not great with communication and how to kind of navigate that.
oh my gosh, actually, that's a hard question. I think that it goes.
Different class, actually.
Yeah. Yeah,
I know.
so. Right, all agents are not created equal for sure. I think that. I mean, you won't use that agent probably next time, right? I think that a lot of effort and work needs to go into who you're choosing to pitch your card to for the next 8 to 10 months, or even 4 months, or even 2 months. I think that's one of the reasons that I've been so grateful and successful in this business is because I have repeat business. Thank goodness. And of course, they're not everyone's cup of tea. I'm sure there are agents who are ticked at me. I have no idea, but I think that you have to make a good choice from the beginning. But if you are caught in a situation where your buyers have already spoken to somebody, you're stuck with that person, they've written an offer, you're just grateful to be on there. I would have a conversation with that agent and just say, hey, I just need to understand how you communicate. Because I feel like I'm in the dark. I don't know what's going on. Tell me how you communicate through this process so that I can better understand how to interact with you. It doesn't call them on it, that's not necessary, but just to say like, how would you like to communicate? How do you see this going? I unfortunately know a lot of agents who just don't return phone calls. They're not prompt with their responses. Things just aren't a big deal because it doesn't affect them directly, they don't think. But what they don't understand is that affecting the buyer's agent, therefore affects the buyer, therefore affects their residual business. So, and the relationship, which is the most important part of this business. So I think a clear communication and a clear conversation about, hey, like I'm not getting the communication I need to be informed. Like one of the things Edge does, we have an app that's awesome. In addition to all the communication that already goes out and weekly texts on single family homes and townhomes of construction updates, we also have an app that keeps our buyers updated of everything that's going on in their home. And so if they don't feel like they're getting quite enough communication, and they want to know every day what's happening, it's on the app, which is nice. So.
I had one last thing. You and I had a conversation about inventory.
Yeah.
And so with agents, what's your suggestion on that? On like basically just figuring out what's available other than the MLS?
Yes, so thank you for bringing that up because we actually didn't talk about that at all. We kind of did in our teaser, but we didn't talk about that at all. If you're looking at the MLS and you see, let's say a lot in Harriman that shows a 2-story and you blow right past it, it's an edge lot and you blow right past it because your buyer needs a Rambler in Harriman, don't. And not only that, but whoever is listed on the MLS, you can still work with any edge agent. Every builder's gonna do this differently, but we cross-sell. So if you have someone you like to work with, you can work with us wherever you want to build a product from that builder. From edge, you can work with whatever edge agent you want or whoever you want. But don't blow past that, because all we're doing is giving you a snippet of what you might be able to fit on that lot or what you would put on that lot. We're giving you a vision. But I also have 40 base plans. And so if I can fit it there, I'm happy to build it there. And so a lot of times, Jeff, right, and thank you, Jeff, for bringing that up. A lot of times people will blow right past that inventory because it's not the kind of home that they're looking for. Instead of just, and that's actually a great thing too. If you have someone you can reach out to and you can trust, just ask, what do you have available? Where can I fit a Rambler? Where can I fit this massive 2-story that my client wants with a huge 3rd-car garage? Reaching out and asking, there are oftentimes things that aren't even on the MLS. Sometimes I have listings, I think I had a handful the other day that I realized that were my builds that weren't even on the MLS. So it happens a lot because there's so much moving inventory and so much coming online and so much selling or going under contract that I can't guarantee the MLS is accurate, nor do I audit my own listings. I can't touch my own listings. So if they're wrong, I'm so sorry. But yeah, that is a huge, I think that's a huge thing that people miss, is that you just blow right past it because it doesn't show exactly what your buyer's name on it. But in reality, I have endless options. You just need to call me or call whatever builder and make sure also that they can cross-sell, or if they don't, that you're calling the right agent in the right community. Agent relationships are super important to Edge, and so that's why they've allowed us to cross-sell, so that we can maintain these close relationships with our agents rather than sending you to somebody different for every community. That's kind of the goal.
Anybody on Zoom have any last questions? Anybody here? Going once? Going twice? Thank you, you're awesome. Hey, stick around on Zoom here for a second. Thank you, Janine, guys, really good. Good info. Obviously, she's a great connection for you guys. Reach out to her when you get a new client. Find out what you don't know.
Yeah.
You know, so you're starting that search. First thing you usually do is set them up on hot sheets, right? Or listing alerts. So that's super helpful. Greg, I made you a slide. Or Ashley did. Ashley made you a slide. We have a sponsor in the house. Greg has actually been here before as an instructor. It's really kind of awesome. The way I met him is he showed up at my office. Come on up. He showed up at my office to drop off some flyers, and I had never seen him before. And I'm like, oh, who are these for? And he's like, oh, they're for the Romneys. And I asked him, well, how did you meet the Romneys? He said, I met him online, and I left it at that. Come to find out, they had never met in person. He had just seen what they were putting out there. He connected with them and wanted to offer some value. So that was like a good introduction, right? Somebody that's just like, hey, I think I can help you out. Let me do something for you. That led to him coming in here and teaching a class on creating video and content for your social media, which was really good. If you guys want a copy of that, I have it on YouTube, and I can send you a link to that. But we have new logos since you were here last. Yeah. So start with that. Yeah, tell us where you're at. What's going on?
I'm at Introlend. Just made a little bit of a switch from one model to another. Different variety of products, different variety of pricing and whatnot, and just something that I felt aligned with my future a little better. Nothing bad to say whatsoever, just pivoted and felt like it was a different direction for me. So that's that. I did teach a class about a month ago. I am teaching another class in about a month on like part 2, how to edit, how to create, how to like style your videos a little more. So that's June 21st. So be sure to get that on your calendar. And I just want to follow up with Janine. I've built 2 houses with Edge. I've worked with Edge quite a lot in my career, and I love Edge. I love Janine. Not only do they build a fabulous house, I live in an Edge house right now, but they build awesome communities, which only helps the homeowner as well as home values and whatnot. So Edge is awesome. Get with her because she's awesome. But food is in the back. June 21st is part 2 to the social media class.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg. All right, guys, stick around and let's just socialize a little bit and have some lunch. And thank you again, Janine. You're awesome. And see you guys on Zoom. We'll chat later. Reach out if I can do anything for you.
Oh, that's exciting. It's daunting.
Yeah. Edge homes, is it just the regular